Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial. Go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
Oh, he's drunk. And Michael.
Howdy.
Wow, he's drunk but hiding it. Richard and Michael, they like to deliberate the top of any given certain thing, and that would be the Mount Rushmore of those things. And this time around, the Mount Rushmore is of Lovable Drunks. Richard, why?
I think through some of the episodes we've done, I'd noticed that this trend of lovable drunks throughout pop culture and just in general in life, and I felt like it's something we needed to address.
Yeah, there's also a lot of non-lovable men out there lately who...
Right, that's also true. Keep in mind, this should be lovable drunks. There are a few characters who I had thought of, or people I had thought of, and I was like, not very lovable.
Yeah.
Guess we're going to cross that right off the list.
I'm also interested to see what the majority is from fiction or non-fiction or reality. So, Richard, you chose it. Michael, go first.
I'm going to jump right in. Barney Gumble from The Simpsons.
Also on my list.
I knew it.
He is a character that is genuinely, harmless.
Yeah.
In spite of his severe drunkenness. He was on a good path before Homer introduced him to beer.
Getting ready to go to Harvard, I believe.
High in the SAT. Right before he's going to take his SATs, just, fell off the wagon.
Homer gave him one beer and he suddenly turned into Barney.
He's sweet and he's purposeful in his drinking and his alcoholism, and that he only really has one mode, which is I got to get more beer.
Yeah,
Gotta drink some more. I do like that this is a character on a sitcom, an American sitcom, who they actually address his alcoholism over and over and over.
Yeah,
he's not just someone that drinks a bunch and that it's just never brought up that, oh yeah, you're an alcoholic.
Right.
They try to get him sober a number of times, and usually he gets...
half works.
Yeah, it half works. He gets taken advantage of by Mo.
Yeah, I think the real lesson in thinking about this was that Mo is a tremendous asshole.
Yeah, he's really awful. He gets him hooked on caffeine as soon as he gets off the
Espressos,
bottle.
right? Wasn't it?
But I think that he is personable in spite of being fall down drunk.
Yeah,
and I think there's just a couple of really great moments as a character, Homer and him were pegged to be the everyman in space, and
the Joe Sixpack in space,
and he has to be literally, and he has to be sober for the NASA training, and it kind of reveals that he has this underneath all of the drunkenness. There is a very put together man, and then they have a celebratory glass of champagne, and then he takes one sip, and then you start to see him kind of devolve almost like the Wolfman or something, this transformation. He just starts going,
even though it's non-alcoholic champagne.
it goes, it begins. And he's just so wonderful. You can't help but cheer for him and be like, oh, your life is kind of awful at times, but
Also an artistic soul.
Yeah.
As evidenced by his Springfield Film Festival winning short, which is beautiful, but I believe as Jay from the Critic said, was beautiful, touching, but ultimately very poorly named Pocahontas.
Don't weep for me, I'm already dead.
Yes.
It really should have lost out to Football in the Groin.
Oh, my groin.
That was another instance where he swore to be sober, and then it came back around and they revealed that whoever won the film contest, the grand prize was a lifetime supply of Duff beer.
Which also happens to Barney sometimes. You might remember there was an episode where he had to be a designated driver, and that also was a night where he wound up winning an unlimited supply of Duff beer from Duff Man for the entire night. He had to use it that night.
I find it interesting, unlike other TV characters, that he is one that they were very cognizant of how he was at some point, at how he was displayed, and they tried to make him sober, and then they're like, this isn't that character. They eventually had to go right around and be like, he's not even though it might be more responsible to show him as sober, he's a drunk, but not a bad person at the same time.
He is one of the only foils really to Homer, to somebody who's making more poor choices than Homer. Like in the world of Springfield, you know that Mr. Burns is more evil than Homer, and you know Barney has less actual emotional resources than Homer does. So that is one of the roles he seems to serve. So you both chose it.
Yes.
Cool. What is your second choice, Richard?
My second choice is Foster Brooks.
Oh, I love it.
Not Foster Farms.
No.
Not Foster Grant.
Not Brooks and Dunn.
Not the glasses guy, Foster Grant. Yeah. No, Foster Brooks, who was a comedian, I guess, in the 60s and 70s mainly. And his whole persona was basically playing a drunk. This was his nightclub act, his stand-up routine.
Yeah.
You know, if you'd see him a lot on like the Dean Martin celebrity roasts.
Oh, yeah.
Or like variety shows. And usually his character was some sort of like conventioneer or somebody who had too much to drink and would be slurring their words and a lot of malpropisms and bits based off of that.
Yeah.
And I chose Foster Brooks partially because as a kid, that was the first time I remember seeing a representation of like a drunk, really, that really kind of clicked with me. Secondly, I think that Mad was to Foster Brooks like the Kennedy assassination was to Von Meter.
Oh.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Like his career basically was over.
Mothers Against Drunk Drivers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because once it was like the early 80s and everyone went, wait, alcoholism is actually bad.
Yeah.
And all these jokes about getting in your car and crashing your car while you're drunk, not actually that funny.
No, no.
So basically he basically dropped his whole routine that he had built 20 plus years of a career off of. He had to basically drop the routine and just become like an actor comedian. And
was he addicted to espresso too, like Barney?
Interestingly enough, he apparently had called himself like a weekend drinker, but by the early 60s, he decided someone had made him a bet.
Yeah.
Like $10. He was like a newscaster. $10 that he could stop drinking for X amount of time. And he just stopped and never
cold
went
turkey.
back. Yeah, so he was like one of those ones like Dean Martin didn't drink, wasn't really a heavy drinker, and most of the time, if you watch like a Dean Martin special or something, same thing with Foster Brooks, they're drinking apple juice.
Yeah. This is a great pick. I love Foster Brooks, and I love the reality that he brings to the drunk archetype.
Right.
I don't know if it's going to be on your list. There's one in the bag here that I have of a archetype of a character.
Are you opening the bag right now?
Should I open the
You
bag?
might open the damn bag right
I'm
now.
going to open the bag. If you observe The Simpsons and how characters developed on The Simpsons.
Wait, hold on one second. Whose bag is this that you're opening? Is it my bag?
This is the Borglum bag. This is the Borglum bag. This is for our listeners. We're adding something new in season 3, and that is the creator of the Mount Rushmore Monument was a sculptor named Gutzon Borglum, and he chose those presidents that were on the monument, and he chose the reason why. And so now we got a bag. I'm going to put, as the judge, I'm going to use my power to put something in the bag, a choice that I have, and this bag at any point, I can pull it out and I can kind of trump you guys with it, or if you choose what's in the bag, you get the point. But the bag is in my brain.
Okay.
No, the bag is physically right
Your bag is a brain?
My bag is a brain. And in the bag is a guy who was the model for Barney Gumble, and that's Crazy Guggenheim. More specifically, the actor Frank Fontaine, who played Crazy Guggenheim on the Jackie Gleason show. And so he literally had those like googly eyes and the same kind of verbal patois. And Crazy Guggenheim was essentially the character study for the Barney Gumble character, like Edward G. Robinson was the character study for Chief Wiggum, and like Professor Frink as portrayed by Jerry Lewis, Professor Frink was essentially the Jerry Lewis Nutty Professor character. So
that's also the thing that, because didn't Crazy Guggenheim also have like this really great singing voice, like this rich baritone?
Yeah, Frank Fontaine was a professional singer.
Which is what they, with Barney Gumble,
Yeah.
there have been several times, to go back to that pick, where he's
A member of the B Sharps.
with this beautiful Irish
Yeah.
tenor
Yeah.
coming out of like Barney's like pie hole.
The B Sharps.
What I think is interesting
Joke becomes funnier the more times you say it.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, the Crazy Guggenheim. His name isn't Drunk Guggenheim. It's Crazy, and I think they were showing even more sensitivity at that era by saying they don't show this guy drinking all the time. They just show him being crazy. We can kind of infer that perhaps alcohol has brought him addled state. But the reason I brought that up is I don't know where the fuck I am right now.
Because Richard forced it on you to.
Richard forced it on me. Okay.
Oh, is that? Wait, what?
Wasn't there something else going on?
You were talking about
Oh,
Foster.
you were talking
about
about
your pick, and then
Yeah.
You said something. You were like, "Well, this
Yes.
is going to be my pick." And
Okay.
I said, "Well, why not just do it now?" Because-
Foster Brooks, unlike Crazy Guggenheim, actually seemed to accurately portray, almost to the method acting state, the point of inebriation. His ability to kind of like interrupt himself and hiccup and do all that stuff was just so accurate and so hilarious. And take these celebrities who he was roasting. Usually by the time you got roasted, you weren't the A-list anymore. But to skewer them in such a way, how can you be drunker than Dean Martin? Well, if you're Foster Brooks,
you can make it work. Yeah, it's
one of my favorite Foster Brooks sketches is he and Dean Martin are in a bar near an airport, and Foster Brooks comes in. He's wearing a pilot's outfit, and he's just having a drink before he goes and flies because he's a pilot. He wants to calm his nerves a little bit. I can see exactly why the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers
would not a fan, and I think that's something where people had a hard time believing that wasn't actually Foster Brooks. I mean, there are for a long time, people just thought he wasn't basically playing a character, right? That you couldn't be that accurate of a drunk without actually being drunk.
Right.
Oh, by the way, do you know how Frank Fontaine died?
No.
Died of a heart attack after doing a benefit show where he'd accepted a check that he was going to donate to heart research.
Oh, the ironies.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Well, it's probably his drinking that did him in, though.
Yeah. What is your second choice?
Speaking of drinks that did someone in, W.C. Fields.
Oh, wow.
William Claude Duncanfield was a vaudevillian actor and an actor on the silent screen, famous comedian, famous juggler, famous pool player, also famous drunk, and famous for playing a character who loved to drink and was drunk in just about every one of his movies. And it kind of just became like this character trait for him.
Yeah.
And he was, I thought of this one initially. I have an uncle, David Richards, who used to...
Does he listen to the podcast?
He does not. I think he's passed on.
Oh,
he's not a close one. He's like a family friend.
Okay.
And he's...
So you're lying to us about this uncle thing.
Yes. He used to call me Michael J. Winfield in that W.C. Fields voice. One, my middle initial is not J, but he would just kind of use that. And I would just, one of those things that like, you could see this guy doing his little W.C. Fields thing.
Like people just at the same era, they also did Groucho. Like, if I could walk like that, I don't know.
If I walk like that, I wouldn't need aftershave lotion.
I guess almost in that same way that the pick that you just chose, Jeff, the Frank Fontaine, the crazy Guggenheim.
Yeah.
Like he has like that iconically drunk face of like the fat face and the big red nose.
Yeah.
And just that like.
Why are you looking at me, Michael?
Well, your nose is still red from helping Santa guy.
His sleigh.
Slave from a few weeks ago.
It's sunburn from here in Los Angeles.
That's right.
It is Christmas time.
But like his, all of his characters, he could play anything from like high class to low class and everything in between. But they all kind of had that kind of slightly malicious, but kind of in over his head, sort of drunken, aloof kind of guy.
It was an amazing character because it seemed to travel from one scenario to another, and he could be married, he could be single, he could be high status, he could be low status, and it almost seemed impervious. So it was like somebody like George Carlin. You could imagine setting him in these different, and you would always know his attitude towards the people around him. It's not a loving one, although he's lovable.
He would like sometimes his characters he would like kick kids.
Yeah,
and kick dogs. Yeah. And I read like an article, or it was an interview, and he said, let me find it real quick. I was the first comic in world history, so they told me to pick fights with children. I booted baby Leroy. Then in another picture, I kicked a little dog, but I got sympathy both times. People didn't know what the unimaginable baby might do to get even, and then they thought the dog might bite me.
Yeah.
So even though he was the aggressor, he was still kind of like a cowed man sort of thing.
Is the fact
he also had like like this weird like aversion to drinking water that played into
Yeah,
his
yeah,
drunkenness,
yeah.
where like he'd drink water and he would hate it.
Or he'd request water like as a back and then use it to wash his hands.
Yeah.
The sense, what I love of in some cases, these characters fit these archetypes that have been around in storytelling for years. And in one component, I think one of the things that makes the drunk so lovable, where it's like think of like I don't know if this will be a choice or not, but like a Billy Bob Thornton type of character, a bad Santa, is that you love them because they're saying what we want to say often about society, and also their substance addiction has made them a child, so they're really just this helpless, unfit for life kind of individual. So, I always wonder what it is that makes them so lovable when they're really a detriment to society. They're dangerous. They could go out on the road and kill us all. But what is it? What is it that makes them lovable?
I don't know. Is it like you look at like someone like a Mr. Magoo, who wasn't a drunk, but he was just constantly kind of getting himself in and out of trouble.
Yeah.
And you kind of like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing.
He doesn't
he's
know.
blind
Yeah.
and old and whatever. And maybe like the addition of alcohol kind of lowers your expectations that they're a bad person.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing. They're kind of doing it in spite of themselves, and they're not so bad.
Yeah, yeah. Gentlemen and ladies, I have some crazy news. There's something free to be had in this world where everybody wants you to pay for something. When everybody wants you to get out your pocketbook, get out your checkbook, I got something free for you. That is a free podcast. No, that is a free book from the fine folks at Audible. That's right. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. You could read Love Drunk Cowboy, Spikes and Spurs series, Book 1, a torrid romance by Carolyn Brown and Anne Marie Lee. This is so torrid it took 2 women to write it, this book. With Audible, you can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial by going to audibletrial.com/Rushmore with over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player, or Victrola. What? Victrola?
Victrola, I know that guy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
went to college with him.
Victrola. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Rushmore for your free audiobook. Guys, we have 2 years of back episodes. That's 2 seasons.
Yeah.
What do you think if you're going to introduce this podcast to somebody? If you say, hey, go back and check out some of our old stuff, what would they use?
Start with number 1, baby.
Start with number 1.
Just let it roll.
Yeah. It only gets better from there. You'll just be relieved that we don't use that same microphone anymore. I might say go back and listen to the Soviet Russia one, or
IKEA one was a recent
IKEA.
favorite from last year.
yeah.
Everyone loves IKEA or hates it, but
Or
you know
hates
what
it.
it is.
But you go there and you can download old episodes, rate and review them. That would be doing us a solid if you did that by going to iTunes or SoundCloud or ZipZap or Stitcher or
Is that a thing? Really?
yeah.
One thing also, I know it's near the holiday season, and my birthday's coming up as well.
Oh.
You know what would be a great present for me? If you like this show, tell your friends about it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, go on your Facebook, your Twitter, or whatever, or even in person. If you actually do this thing where you still see people in person, I know it's a very old
Overrated.
concept, but let them know, hey, here's a great podcast. You guys should check it out too.
Yeah.
That'd make me feel swell.
Guys, come on. Help Richard out. When is your birthday?
He's got so little.
February 3rd.
Oh, okay.
And your social security, the last 4 are...
1, 2, 3, 4.
And your mom's maiden name is...
Maiden.
What was the
Maiden.
first animal that you own? I'm just throwing it out there.
This is
trying to
this for
figure it out.
possibility to win a free Frisbee.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, frisbees.
Oh, well, join us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to tell us what your choice is, because you could still influence this next season of Mount Rushmore podcast by telling us what choices you'd like us to bicker about aimlessly and endlessly. Okay, we are back, and it is Richard on his third choice. Oh, hey. Take off, eh?
That's right. I'm going with a dual choice here. Bob and Doug McKenzie,
Oh, I love it.
otherwise known as the host of formerly Canadian Corner,
Yeah,
but then they had to change the name for legal reasons to the Great White North.
to the Great White North.
A sketch on SCTV Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis that was created under very dubious reasons. You know the reason behind
Well,
it?
I thought it was because they had demanded more Canadian
Exactly.
content.
Yeah, they had. In fact, our good Canadian friend Casey, he may have even alluded to the fact that there's a certain amount of Canadian content that is required.
Yeah.
And after the first couple of seasons of SCTV, which was shot in Canada, but it was on
Shot in Edmonton, but showed on
like
in Canadian television.
Cinemax or something, or it was
was
somewhere in
all
the
over
US.
place, yeah.
But where it started airing it in season 3 on CBC, the shows were 2 minutes longer, so they needed an extra 2 minutes of content just for the Canadian audiences. And CBC also requested that it be Canadian content if you can make it that.
Yeah.
And they thought that was a ridiculous request since it's a Canadian comedy show filming in Canada with Canadian crew, Canadian cast, whole 9 yards. So they basically came up with this idea of, okay, you want Canadian content? We're going to basically put every Canadian stereotype into one just boolia base.
I love those one. It does
French
predate-
Canadian, that bouillabaisse base.
does predate, say, like Wayne's World, and that just kind of shows.
It's definitely a proto-Wayne's World for sure.
And a couple of guys just wearing toques, eating back bacon. Yeah, sounds good.
And apparently, each season they would just come down to the stage and basically be just them and a couple of crew guys.
Yeah,
and they would just sit down and just start drinking beers, like real beers.
Yeah,
and cooking back bacon up on their little grills, and just improvising about whatever the hell they felt like. So none of these were really like scripted out in any real sense. It was like a true improv sort of thing, where they would just sit down. And Dave Thomas said in his book, he said something to the effect of like, basically, if we did a dozen of them, like 5 of them would be terrible. There'd be another 2 or 3 that we would be cracking each other up so much that we couldn't finish it. The rest would be the ones that we'd use.
Did the actors themselves? Did they actually? Like you said, they were drinking. Did they get to the point where they were drunk or visibly drunk on camera and like really?
I feel like they had the wet lips of a drunk guy's, like, you know, the mouth.
Especially Rick Moranis. He had that kind of like 1,000-yard stare
Yeah.
where he kind of had like look into the camera like extra hard. Like
he's a little
what's
guy
happening.
too, so it's not like much would take very much to
get him down.
tip him over.
And of course, and beer was a big part of their persona. A lot of the topics, things they talked about on their panel talk show, involved how to get beer through snow on skis, or they play a game called Name That Beer, where they have to do like a blind taste test, or they have to figure out how you, instead of drinking eggnog, which sucks, how can you drink beer nog?
Mm-hmm. Did they also do the Beer Hunter? Is that something they did? Or was
Yes,
that a sketch?
I believe so. Yeah, they and much to their chagrin, this became probably the breakout. Character from SCTV to the point where they did get to make a movie. Strange Brew. Me as a kid, one of my favorite dumb movies of all time, and another one that for a while I had pretty well, memorized.
Yeah. It seemed like Strange Brew, they did the same thing. I remember the Ali G movie came out, and you take a character who is mostly in improvised sketch and then put him in a scripted movie. And how does that translate? In the case of Strange Brew, they used the plot of Hamlet.
Yes.
So like, okay.
And based it around beer and hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally from the beginning of it. It is them. They get caught. They get arrested because they try to. In one of their episodes, they start out with one of the skits of them talking about how you can get free beer because you put a mouse inside the beer, and then you bring it back and you say, I had a mouse in this beer. I need a new 12-pack.
And who was it? Max von Sydow?
Max von Sydow is Brewmeister Smith from the Elsinore Brewery.
Yeah.
And as you said, it is a very loose retelling of Shakespeare's Hamlet. And they wind up getting caught in this family drama over this brewery because they wind up trying to go back to all the way to like the castle Elsinore to get their free 12-pack of beer.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of goofy and drunk the whole time, and they've always got a beer in their hand. They're every stereotype of kind of a certain type of Canadian that may not actually exist.
Mm-hmm.
But as a non-Canadian, I am convinced that this Canadian exists, and they all drink Moosehead and sit around with their toques and watch hockey and eat back bacon and drink beer.
Yeah. The Canadians that I've spoken to describe those as guys from the prairies, which is just
A lot of Manitoba
Yeah.
and Alberta,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Yeah.
our Midwest. Dave Thomas, when interviewed about SCTV as the head writer, he would sometimes be in the position where the other actors / writers went home because their contracts were over, but he was accountable to finish the show. So he would have to write these sketches where he would just walking through a fog and kind of looking at things off camera and just describing them all by himself. So I could see how he would very much appreciate a sketch that was just purely improv and not written. So, Michael, what's up?
My third choice is Drunk Uncle from SNL.
I don't know this one.
Yeah, I don't either.
Bobby Moynihan.
Okay, yeah, I just sort of know it.
Okay.
But I've never seen it. I know the concept.
He plays a character named Drunk Uncle during like a Weekend Update segment, and he's kind of like in this vein. He comes out with like a glass of whiskey or bourbon or something on the rocks, and kind of sloshing in, and he kind of plays like a kind of stereotypical family member who you run into at holidays and events, and he usually comes in slurring, using the wrong terminology. Everything that he says is slightly racist and sexist. It's like right on the edge or just like overtly racist. And like, you know, the anchors usually have to like kind of push him back and be like, oh, drunk uncle, what are you doing? He's constantly offended by new things, new technology, and or like progressiveness. Like he'll have like a hard on for like Fitbit.
Yeah.
Or like quinoa.
Oh, he's impressed by he likes them, or he's
he can't believe it.
He can't believe
he
it.
hates it. All these things that he can't catch up to, and like it's been one of those repeating characters that just kind of like builds on it slowly throughout it, and it's all like the same, like just great beats. He'll like fall asleep in the middle of it, and then wake up singing to like to like a a Billy Ocean song or something, but he gets, and then he always gets to the point where like he starts sobbing. He starts crying and like apologizing for all the things he's not, and then goes right back into singing. And he's just so gregarious, and like it's funny. Like I don't have family like this. Like I don't have like someone that you just like regret seeing every Thanksgiving that you have to avoid and be like, oh, I can't have any conversations with them. But I just love the over-the-topness, and he's so pitiable that you just like your heart goes out to like this awful racist, sexist character.
I definitely had an uncle like that. He was just he was just struck fear in me, and he would say things that as an adult you realize he was saying something nice, but he always had a Coors can in his hand, and he was like a redneck extension of our family, and most of our family was just white trash. He was like redneck, and he would say nice things mean. So he'd say like, "Did you get your Christmas present that you wanted?" And you thought he was being sarcastic, or you thought maybe you were about to like give him the present because you thought he was shaking you down for it. So I hear you got a girlfriend. Tell me what her name is.
Like you think he may be asking me for like to look her up?
I don't know.
Nefarious reasons.
No. If there was a court transcript, he never really said anything mean. It was just he said it mean ways.
I read like a little interview and they were asking Bobby Moynihan how he created him. And he just said, I just came up with him at 4 a.m.
Oh, that's funny.
I love the hidden story that is just like, it's just something funny I thought of, not like there's this depth to it. It's just like, drunk uncle sounds good.
Cool. All right, Ricardo.
All right, my last choice is me.
The fuck?
At least in my mind.
Bold.
When I'm drunk.
Oh, you are a punchy drunk. You are,
but I don't think so. That's the fun part.
Fun
for
you.
me.
Michael.
Yes.
Describe Richard. How he's drinking. How does he make you feel?
Richard starts out great. Gets to a really good point where he's buying drinks, drinking. We're playing the jukebox at a bar, having a great time.
Goofy.
Then gets to a point where he's trying to prove a point and starts using his fists to prove that point.
Wait. Oh, go Rough Riders, go!
Oh, President Roosevelt.
That's me. I'm looking for a hard-drinking, hard-acting, hard-ass kind of fella to join the Rough Riders.
I've got a vodka tonic here if you would like it. Or
give me that. You are rumored to be one of the hard-drinking Rough Riders, and you're a man with a nice mustache. Are you ready to join me?
I don't really like Cubans.
What? What? Well, listen, hey fella, you was describing him. You said he starts out strong and energetic, and then what happens? Does he fight to the finish?
Then the fists come out in your shoulders, and you're just like, man, can we just drink? Can we just hang out? What? You're right. Yes, you're right. You get to the point where you're just like, you're right, Richard. Yes, your point. Your point is you're right. I've been beaten into submission.
See, so I
stubborn. I like that.
I believe it's called a bully pulpit.
That's right.
And that bully pulpit is my 2 drunk fists.
Well, what's wrong with I haven't heard one downside to this yet?
You gore one person when you're drunk and you get a reputation.
Oh.
This happened one time in college.
Are you still able to lead the country and maybe designate the national parks as off limits to development?
I don't know how to tell you this, President Roosevelt, but we have a new president.
What?
And I don't think there's going to be many national parks. There's going to be a lot of oil.
There's going to be a lot of national parking lots.
Oh!
Sold off to the highest bidder.
Oh, I'm going to just go wrestle a bear. Hey, guys, what's up?
Oh, hey, Jeff, where were you?
So you're talking about Richard. Describe him when he's drinking.
Well, okay. I
just did. Yeah.
Thought I have.
Oh,
I would like to, because since Richard chose this as Richard in his own mind, I would like to know, who do you think you are, Richard?
Yeah.
I think I'm charming. And
nobody's ever charming
and goofy. But here's the thing, and this could be really me specifically, but if we're honest, it's everybody. Everybody thinks they're a lovable drunk. When they're drunk.
Yeah.
No, nobody. There's always a gap between how you perceive yourself.
Yeah.
When you've been drinking, or how you think of yourself, like after the fact. Like, I was just kind of goofy and laughing.
It's that uncanny valley when you're watching questionable CGI, and you're like, that kind of looks like an elf.
I am the uncanny valley when I've been drinking, apparently. But this is everybody. Everybody thinks that alcohol makes them goofy and fun and just looser. And it turns out, no, it probably...
A good dancer.
It probably just makes you more of an asshole.
Yeah.
Whatever your asshole tendencies are, they will be ramped up 10 times.
It seems like the healing brush in Photoshop, or like a blur thing that kind of makes you look attractive.
Like Michael, for example, gets very, very loud. Michael is a loud drunk.
If I'm...
Listen.
He also he gets handsy.
I get gregarious. I don't think I get angry, but I guess I get very...
No, you're not...
I get
you don't get angry, but you get...
I get just like...
You get like Super Michael. Mega Mecha Michael.
I pull out my Technicolor Dreamcoat and just want to show the world who I am out the window.
Then you fall off a stool and you get poured.
So I think of one of the archetypes of the drunk is in going back to Shakespeare, who inspired Strange Brew, but like Falstaff, this character who's this large, gregarious, almost like who's the ghost of Christmas present.
Yeah. And I think when I'm drunk, personally, go back to me, I think I'm thinking like, hey, I'm big, I'm using my hands, I'm physical, isn't that right, pal? Bop, 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 bop. Yeah. And I think I'm just being kind of funny about it.
It's the hug.
Apparently I'm a little less funny than I think I am. Apparently I need to work on that.
Well, I love how meta this has become. I expect a spate of Rushmores in the future where you just use yourself for each thing.
I thought about that for the jackets episode.
Okay, yeah.
I could not use myself as a jacket.
The many jackets of Richard Manfredi.
I kind of did, didn't I?
It seemed like it was personal. It seemed like personal. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, you said pink. You used a pink satin baseball jacket when you were in Pink Ladies.
Yes.
Okay.
My last choice is Adina and Patsy from Absolutely Fabulous.
Oh, it's fun.
Patsy, darling.
Are they lovable?
Are they lovable? I was just going to say that.
We love them.
I think we love them.
They're not cuddly, but we love them. They're prickly.
I think that there is an element of when you're so upper class, but your life is living at the bottom of a barrel or the bottom of a bottle of gin or whatever, that I think that there is a intelligence to them, and an intelligence to, let's say, a British sensibility, even upper class, that the smartness in which they can cut someone down kind of covers up how awful they are to, say, Safi.
Yeah.
Like to their daughter, to her daughter, Edwina's daughter, who's just she's just trying to get by. I mean, I think the introductory episode of Absolutely Fabulous is that Eddie is drunk and she goes through her day. And then at the end of the episode, she's trying to crawl back in the window and just being drunk and just screaming at her daughter to let her in, who is just so over it.
Yeah, she's the Lisa Simpson.
But watching, I think, highbrow characters get knocked down a peg. I think we've seen it over and over. It's just for whatever it is, that there's something about, especially Eddie, who you just kind of want her to pull it together, and she just never will.
Yeah. You know what? I find this interesting choice because at first I was going to say they are the first females on this list, but then I would say they're very close to being drag characters. There's something
that's interesting,
so bizarrely grotesque about the amount of makeup and things that almost seems like that they're archetypes versus actual women.
I think that there is like a moment when like she's being so like submissive to her daughter when she's saying just sweetie darling, and she's like pleading with her to be part of her life that she just doesn't understand, that you feel like this sympathy towards, and you're just like, oh, there's something there, and then she turns on a dime and she's just like vicious again.
Yes.
Maybe it reminds me in times of like my own grandmother, who wasn't a drunk but was in that same vein of being very she could be cutting, but as well as lovable. She was English as well.
Oh, okay.
And maybe there's like the little embers of something there that I find endearing.
Did she ever get punchy?
My grandma never got punchy.
Okay. Wow. Cool. Good choices. I guess that wraps things up. And Michael, thank you for, in the final choice, actually breaking the gender barrier and listing some women as lovable drunks. I wonder if that's going to win you any points or not. Well, let's see. So here's who I want to be on the Rushmore. Obviously, we got to say Barney Gumble. So you guys both get a point for that, for picking Barney Gumble. And you know what? From here on out, I want to give one for Foster Brooks. Richard, I thought that was a great choice. And I want to give one for Bob and Doug McKenzie, just because I love them so much. And guess who else is going to get one? Well, heck, it's going to be Jeff Hopkins reaching into the bag and pulling out Frank Fontaine, Crazy Guggenheim, as he was the prototype for Barney Gumble, bringing us full circle. So that is the Mount Rushmore podcast, the Mount Rushmore of Lovable Drunks. As always, I'm Jeff.
All right, Richard. I'm Michael.